The world is watching with their ears.
Paratopia, our guest tonight, is a man who needs no introduction. He is the owner of a paranormal hotspot by almost all accounts. He's someone who has had near-death experience. He's heavy into meditation. He has reached out to whatever this phenomena is, and it has reached back. And he invites you to his ranch to reach for it as well. Reach for the stars. You can learn all about him at ECETI.org. That's ECETI.org. Where you can also purchase a documentary feature that includes a lot of, UFO and orb footage and testimonial and all sorts of fun stuff called Contact Has Begun. That's the name of the movie. So visit the site, ECETI.org, buy the movie Contact Has Begun, and listen to him now on Paratopia. So without further ado, Paratopia, please welcome our very special guest, Mr. James Gilliland. James, thank you so much. I know that you don't do a whole lot of shows anymore, so I'm really glad that you decided to do ours. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
Now, before we get into some of the deeper questions, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, I'm sure you're sick of giving your bio by now, but why not just give us some of the highlights?
Oh, I usually go by nobody, and it works very well. So, basically, I'll skip my childhood, but everything started with a near-death experience where I drowned and crossed over and went through the tunnel everybody talks about, and had a lot of crazy experiences after that. And that was 30-something years ago, I think 33 years ago when that happened. And it, put me on a path of seeking out almost every master teacher I could find and studied with lamas and yogis and, scientists and people from all over the world and learned almost every process-oriented therapy you could imagine. But basically, that's the process. And I started the ECETI Ranch here about 25 years ago, building a healing center. It's more of a meditation and healing center using a lot of different modalities to assist people in their awakening and healing process. And about halfway into this, we started having contact with ultra-dimensional beings, and very highly evolved beings started contacting us telepathically, and then they started showing us their ships, and then it's just been crazy ever since. We're just getting outrageous footage of their ships, and they come and tell us when they're going to appear, and so we have our cameras waiting, and that's basically the reason why we've gotten the footage that we've gotten, is because we've risen to the occasion. These are extremely advanced beings. They're very spiritually and technologically advanced beings, and we've kind of met the criteria for contact.
Well, let me ask you this. During your near-death experience, you end up talking with, presumably, God, and God says to you, as you wish, to your, wanting to come back? Was that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was your big lesson, was that there's no sort of good and evil per se there. There's just your perception, and however you choose gets reflected back at you. Is that sort of accurate?
Yeah, pretty much. It was just a consciousness and energy, and I was part of it, but there was a greater light, you might say, this golden white light surrounding me that was conscious and speaking to me. It's neither male nor female. It's beyond that. It's more of a frequency and a force, but a very intelligent frequency and a force, you might say. But it pretty much whatever we're thinking, even worrying about things is a form of prayer. You're actually praying for that thing to happen because the source doesn't have an ego. So it just says as you wish. So whatever you're focusing on, whatever you're carrying in your bands or your consciousness is actually creating your tomorrow.
Well, this is something that Jeff and I have talked about in terms of alleged aliens, which, we're experiencers.
Mm-hmm.
We don't call them aliens because we don't really know what they are, but there does seem to be that as you wish, or as Jeff would say, the more you give, the more you get, sort of thing going on. So how do you know that it's actually interdimensional beings from various places and not as you wish being fulfilled for you, who wants that to be the case?
Yeah, it's a good question. Basically, I wasn't seeking them out. I wasn't looking for them, and I was on a whole different journey. So they came with the package, you might say, or the territory. And once you get to a certain level of consciousness, they find you. You emit an energy signature or a light, you might say, that they pick up, and they know when you're ready. So that's it's kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg. That's one of those questions. I always look at that. Okay, is this an extension of my consciousness? Am I manifesting this? Or if I am, things are manifesting that are outside my reality, and I'm learning new things all the time. So, it might be another level of my consciousness doing this. I don't know. But the one thing is that cameras really don't have a consciousness, and they don't have an imagination. And so when they come on film, something's there. And again, you could say, well, you're manifesting that as a hologram or whatever, but I think the whole world's a hologram, basically. So I guess it doesn't really matter.
Well, when you talk to, you said spiritual leaders or guru types, meditators?
Yes.
You must have talked to them about alien life. Did they say anything about this? I mean, the fact that you could meditate and call in or call down beings?
Well, I found a real mixed bag in this. What happened is the ones that didn't know what was going on they just said, oh, don't do that, don't go there. That's a distraction, just focus on the source. And in your meditation, go for the void or whatever. And the ones that did know about the ancient knowledge got a big grin on their face and smiling, and they were really extremely supportive of it. One of the lamas I studied with, when I told him what was happening, he just started jumping up and down. He got all excited and gave me a big hug, and his students were saying, what'd you say to him? They go, we've never seen him act like that. What did you say to him? And there was kind of an exchange of energy between us. It was a very, very powerful event for me anyway, but they know about it. It's in all the ancient Vedic scriptures. The lamas, the ones that are not steeped in religion but actually know of their ancient history, know about it. It's in all of the Native American traditions, basically. So it's when you do the research, it seems like everything goes back to off-world visitors or ET, and it's a real mixed bag out there when you go into the other planes and dimensions and other off-world visitors, because it's, the majority of it's benevolent, but there are some that are a little self-serving.
Well, when you say go into these other planes or dimensions, what exactly are you doing to go into planes and dimensions?
Well, one of the things that we've done here is that the ranch here is a portal or a vortex. It's a really high-energy place, and so the veils between worlds are very thin. And people come here all the time with their cameras, and they see things or see energy patterns and take pictures. And the cameras actually pick up more of the light spectrum than our eyes, and so beings appear. And some of the beings have actually appeared here and been photographed by a Japanese monk who spends a lot of his life in a cave, basically doing dark retreats. But he can see the other planes and dimensions very easily, and so he actually brings his cell phone and starts taking pictures of these, incredible beings appearing here at the ranch. And then on top of that, finally, when people saw what he was doing, somebody gave him a really nice camera, so he's getting them on camera as well.
I guess sort of a pedestrian question that is
Sure.
tangential to all this is, how were you funded? How did you come into this ranch? How did you afford to meet scientists and llamas and all of that?
Well, basically, before I drowned, I was in commercial real estate, and I had my own office and people working for me, and I was buying houses and fixing them up and selling them, and I went from one house to another, and the last house I bought was a beach house that just went through the roof, and I made a dual unit out of it and sold it, and that gave me the money for the ranch. And now basically I subsist on doing counseling work, doing workshops, and sales from some of the DVDs and books.
How did you? So was it a coincidence? I guess you probably don't believe in coincidence, but that the fact that you of all people ended up with this portal land?
It's interesting. It was guided. There's a major synchronicity all along the way, and I was shown visions of it before I got here, but I didn't know the whole story. I was just looking for a healing center, and that was all I wanted to do, it in a natural environment, and work close to the land and have create a template where people could live a spiritual life in harmony with each other and the land, and live close to nature and work on those levels, and also places where people could clear and heal old wounds and traumas and wrong conclusions and a lot of old patterns that we're carrying around with us. So that was the focus. There's always a bigger picture going on, and so at that time I had no idea, but now I'm seeing the bigger picture, and it's much larger than I even imagined.
Huh. Well, I just watched a 2008 speech that you gave where you were talking about 2012, and I think essentially saying, we're at a precipice where it's going to be really bad news or really good news, depending on how we go, and that there are these various beings, and they're here helping us do the work. And you mentioned this over and over again, doing the work. What does that mean? What is the work that they're doing?
Well, basically, they're working very hard on other levels, and they're inspiring us to move towards a more spiritual life in harmony with each other and the planet. And they're hoping to get us to transcend war and disease and all the other things that we're playing with right now. And they've done this. Actually, they don't lack for any material need whatsoever. They've transcended war and disease, and they have the technologies to do that as well, to clean up our planet and bring in these fearless technologies. And they're already here on the planet right now. They're with the Black Ops, unfortunately, and the elite have them, but it needs to be, handed down to the people and start moving in that direction. But they're very active in working on inspirational levels, energy levels. They do a lot of healing work for people, those who initiate it and ask for it. But mainly they work on those levels, but they have a fine line. They can't really trespass on free will, so we have to initiate it and rise to the occasion so we can access this consciousness and energy and experience some of these things.
But what do they actually do? I mean, maybe this is an unfair question because maybe you don't know, but what is the actual, when you think of doing something for a living, you can pretty much explain what that is. What is it that they actually do?
Well, basically, these beings have transcended, as I said, all material lack. They're in pure service mode, and they're so advanced. Basically, they serve the Creator in all creation, you might say, and they see us as a part of creation that is in dire need of help right now. Because one only has to look at what happened with the Gulf, and the wars and all the other craziness and all the pathogens that are being spread around the planet. So we're definitely in need of as much help as we can get, and they're focused in that area, but there are rules they have to go by, that they can't just come and clean everything up for us.
So what is it that we need to do? Is it a certain number of people? Like if we're at the fork in the road of destiny and one path is bad, one path is good, what is it that we need to do on our end? How many of us need to do it? And does it matter the quality of person that does it?
Basically, what they told me is all you need is an open mind, a loving heart, and pure intent to connect with them and work with them. So, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or anything else. And as far as, what were the other two questions again? the first two.
Basically, does the quality matter, and I guess the population? Is there a certain number of people that need to get on a different path to avert disaster? What would that number be? I
would imagine there is. I haven't been given any numbers. I'm sure there's some kind of a percentage. From my understanding is that they've been talking a lot about different timelines and different realities being created by different individuals and group individuals and things like that. And so I've seen that being acted out, you might say, and I've seen some pretty crazy things happen in my own life where I was sitting right on top of a 5+ quake. I mean, I was at ground zero, and we didn't even know what happened because we were in meditation and bringing in these energies. And I actually had 12 other people there in Hawaii, and we were doing this technique and bringing in the energy, and everybody was being downloaded, you might say, with the higher consciousness and energy. And when we walked out of the hotel, it was at the I think it's a world, I can't remember what it's Dr. Sala's big conference there that he has, Michael Sala with the exopolitics.org. But yeah, a large group of us got together and did some work, and then a smaller group got together later, and a lot of the healers and main teachers, of the island there, and did some very intense work. And when we came out of the room, everybody was just flipped out and freaking out and scared, and the whole hotel was empty, and we couldn't figure out what happened. And we asked them what happened, and nobody could believe that we didn't know what happened. Because we were just outside of that frequency of what was going on. So there are ways of actually moving beyond some of these events and, shifting into a different timeline or moving just out of that frequency. I don't know the exact dynamics on how this all works, but I've seen it work. And so as I said before, if enough people wake up and shift frequencies and change the frequency of the planet, things will go a lot better. If we continue on this unbridled greed and reckless greed and what we're doing to the Gulf and things of that nature, then we're going to have a very hard lesson coming around the corner.
And how much of what we're talking about is knowledge that you gained from these beings as opposed to stuff that you've read?
I don't really, it's funny, I feel bad about this, but I've had all kinds of people send me books, and I never read them. And the reason I don't read them is because I want to get my own information. I don't want to go off of somebody else's information or have it taint whatever's coming through. So I do read books, physics books and things, and stay up on the latest things in that nature. But as far as other information coming in from other beings and things like that, I try to not go there because I don't want it to interfere with the information that's coming in here.
And here's another thing that just sort of gets back to the sort of, for me anyway, the trickstery nature of this stuff, which is, I've seen some of your footage, and it's orbs, and you defend it and say, this isn't dust, this isn't insects, but it seems that with all of this UFO type stuff, there's always a way out. Again, quoting my partner, Jeff Ritzman, there's always a way out for it to be able to say, look, none of this is real. And that just struck me as sort of the same thing. I mean, what do you make of that? Why don't they show up as themselves or in a form that would be believable to most people?
Well, they have here, actually, to certain people, and that is one of the problems that we run across. They don't show up for everybody because, again, we need to rise to the occasion. And some people, if you were to stand in their presence, you'd just come unglued because their frequency would interfere with your frequency, and all of your issues, everything would come up. And it's very hard to stand in the presence of some of these beings. And that's one account. And we do have the metal ships on the website. You can see the metallic ships with the, antennas on them and things like that. And these ships are being filmed all around the world right now. So, we have everything from the nuts and bolts to the triple PhD Boeing and Lockheed engineers that have come here. Air Force base commanders have come here. We had them testify on Coast to Coast. We had a triple PhD Boeing engineer and a Lockheed engineer that were here when a large ship flew in, and I guess Art heard them screaming, and he said, bring them on the air. So I did, and they actually testified, and they said, this is not, what we saw is not ours. It's nothing we have. It was massive, and what it did was beyond imagination. So, we have the scientists on board, we have the footage on board, and we have these things landing, turning into 3 or 4 and going back to 1 again, and, doing all kinds of crazy things. So, the preponderance of evidence and the witnesses and everything else, I think it's pretty solid, as far as this case.
But can I cut in here for a second, James?
Sure.
When you talk about the Boeing and Lockheed guys coming and all sorts of scientists being involved with this,
yes,
and obviously, I mean, they're seeing something, and that's astounding them.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got that kind of activity going on, and you've got, and I've read a bit about your own experiences there, such as meditating on the lawn and having a light come bounce towards you and kind of jump into your chest, which is kind of a familiar thematic around here.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we don't have every available resource in your front lawn right now?
That's a damn good question, and it's available, and I've never seen anything like it. We ask that question often, and I've seen also, too, in the UFO community, there is so much dissension and bickering and fighting. I mean, they eat their young, basically. And
tell me about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of jealousy, and, we invite them up, and they've been up here. I mean, Wendell Stevens just passed over, but he's one that's been here. I can give you a whole list of people that spoke at the conferences that have been here. All of the exopolitics people have been here, and they know it's for real. They've seen the ships, and, they'll go on record and talk about it. So they have been here, and, we had Fox News come here and do a special, and it was a pretty positive one. It was a little spin in the beginning, but they actually gave us a fair shake. And we had BBC come out here with Danny Dyer, and they did a whole special on it, and Paranormal State came out here as well, and they all did specials, and the ships came for them, and they got them on film. So it is getting out there, but there is a major there's a couple of things going on. A lot of the media, kills this stuff, and there is a lot of disinformation and people in ufology that are trying to suppress this information, and for various reasons.
I mean, I'm curious why that. Well, I'll give you a for instance, and let me tell you my backstory with as far as you go. I was for many years the image analyst for Above Top Secret, and I understand they came to your ranch.
Yeah,
and just so you know, and I'm not talking out of school here. I mean, this is totally my story with this. I was tapped for every image case involving unidentified flying objects for them, from the minuscule unknowns to the high-profile cases like O'Hare Airport. Mm-hmm. And when they went to your place and stayed there, I mean, they got gobs of footage that they posted up on the website, and I never got tapped to look at any of it. And I will say that Johnny, the one fellow that I was talking to on there, who was at your place, who I think did most of the recording, if I'm correct. I remarked to him, quite honestly, I said, what you got looks a hell of a lot like birds and bugs to me. I'm not seeing anything in these that I find to be anomalous in any way whatsoever. And I don't exactly remember what his response was, but it was, well, we're going to get you a CD, and that CD I never got. Yeah. But needless to say, now it seems, if I'm correct, now it seems that they have kind of dismissed your whole thing up there. Is that the way this has gone for you with that part of it, or?
Well, yeah, what happened here, this is really interesting, and we actually have him on record. We have a video of him where he actually experienced his own connection with the ships. He had his video camera running, and it was in a process that we were doing a healing for him and helping him clear up. He had a very serious problem with his leg. He could hardly walk. And they came in, and actually he received a spontaneous healing. We have this all on tape. And the ships, you could get their sound in the background. So he got this, and that was sanitized or censored. He had Robbie Williams there singing with his group, Beatles songs, and all of these incredible orbs and light spheres came and were swirling above them and interacting with them. We didn't see that on the film. There was some just amazing footage that was taken that we never saw, and so we were asking him, look, you've got the sound, 2 incredible sound recordings of these ships. You've got some really good footage. You were here when Paranormal State took that footage where the ship showed up in the east exactly when we said they would, and where they had the cameras aiming right exactly where we said they would appear, and they did. Mm-hmm. And they had their computers on with J-Tracker and Heavens Above, making sure these weren't satellites or anything else. And these things flared up, and they lit the whole sky up and then made a nice turn and went down behind the trees. So these aren't meteors or satellites. And they had access to all of this footage, but we don't see it on their site. And, I saw them also totally diss some other things like chemtrails and things like that, saying there's no physical evidence of these things. And I kept seeing it going downhill, and I go, what is wrong with these people? There's something seriously wrong there. But the event here, if you talk to Robbie Williams, who was here, he saw so many ships, and Danny Dyer, he said he was on overload. He said I was on UFO overload, and he went everywhere around the world trying to see a ship, and he saw so many of them. So we don't know why this happened. That's something you'll have to take up with Above Top Secret. We know what did happen, and everything was sanitized and pretty much dismissed. And there's one guy there, I can't remember his name. I think they call him Cracker or whatever. But he picked up some night vision. There were military Russian, I think, tank goggles or whatever, military night vision. Mm-hmm. He looked up, and a ship flew right over his head, and he saw it, and he goes, oh, my God. He goes, it's a disc. And he threw the goggles down and ran back to his trailer and poured himself a stiff drink. So, this is a little crazy for me, too. I mean, I'm watching this behavior, and I'm watching the really good stuff. They had these experiences firsthand, but you didn't hear any of it.
I mean, I can't figure out, this is what I say about a lot of these instances of big hotspots is either they get completely inundated with people or they vanish into obscurity in one way or another. Now, I know that you, in some months ago, had said essentially, I'm done with the UFO community. I don't want anybody coming up here from this. I'm done. What kind of prompted that? Was that by and large part of the same kind of disdain that you're feeling from this community?
Exactly. I mean, basically what happened is that I was shut out of a lot of the major conferences, and it just kept going on and on. I saw incredible censorship. I saw reporting centers actually run by military people that were NSA backgrounds and things like that, totally suppressing it and making some pretty rude comments about what's happening here, and actually changing reports to come and moving, things that happened away from Mount Adams. So I just saw over and over people that, were card-carrying CFR members on boards that shouldn't be there, and then they would tout this, there's no New World Order here, but, apparently the people that they have on their boards are they're basically card-carrying members. So I just kept seeing over and over just the disinformation, the control, the censorship, and the massive egos in there, and I just said, I'm done. People want to see it, come up and see it. I still do radio shows. I have 2 of my own shows, but there's a lot of other things that happen. I can go on and on, but I don't want to dwell on the negative. But it happened, over and over and over again to the point of I just said, there isn't any avenue for this information to get out anymore, and in that community, and actually we're getting incredible results from mainstream right now.
Okay. I mean, the only thing I can tell you is I looked around a lot today at a lot of the footage that has been out here and there. I haven't seen the structured stuff that you're talking about on the website. That's something I missed today just in the course of doing work at work, like I'm supposed to be doing. I often say when people have written and asked me, what do you think about James's Ranch? And I said, well, I don't know. I haven't been there. But certainly one thing that does strike me about a lot of the small lights traveling across the sky in a relatively normal way, I don't say airplanes, and I don't necessarily say satellites that we would know about. But one thing I can say about your place, at least from all of the photos, all of the videos that I've seen of just your area, and it's beautiful, by the way, is that I bet there's damn little light pollution there.
Oh, yeah.
And so, by virtue of that, you're bound to see a lot more of what would normally be an odd occurrence for most people in a suburbanite area. The fact that there's no light pollution, you're going to see spy satellites that aren't on J-Track and all of that. I've not seen like the definitive, solid craft structured object thing. Is there a place, or do you? Would you be able to send me some kind of like what you feel is the most compelling thing ever as far as footage captured at your ranch?
Yeah, we do have several on the website. There's some metallic ships. They're a little fuzzy. They're not real clear because that's the nature of the situation. It's because of the frequency or the fields around them. But you can definitely see they are metallic ships. The majority of the things that we do have here are these enormous light ships. One example is I had Steve Marino with PSI applications, and it was kind of interesting. He came up here and he said, if you're not for real, I'll debunk you, And I said, well, I think you need to go out in the field and meditate first, and then I'll get back to you. But he had 2 ships fly right over his head after that, and they powered up and flew right over his head. So we get these doubles. They come in together, too. There's nothing, and they look bigger than the space station. They're coming in the wrong direction, the space station and we have all that information. We have the websites up. These things are massive, and they'll be coming in the east at, maybe 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. And these things are self-illuminated. They're not reflecting any light because they're in the Earth's shadow. And when you take all the details and the facts down and look at it, there's no way. These things are enormous lights. They spin around each other. They stop. And we have some turning and going back the other way. And what we see here, we get less than probably 1% on film, because the witnesses that have seen these things, a lot of times they don't get them on. They're too shocked to even pick their camera up when it happens. But
I'm not surprised at that at all. Yeah. I mean, you would stand to reason actually sometimes that this stuff doesn't necessarily always play by the rules when it comes to.
Yeah, we are working on a live broadcast where we are going to hook up. We have it all set up now. We're hooking a camera up to 3rd generation night vision, the military goggles, and filming through that. And so we'll be live streaming that pretty soon. We're in the process of finishing the little bugs on that, but we have it dialed in now. So people can just pop on their computer and see what goes on here.
Yeah, that'll be great to have that. Have you ever had anyone come to the ranch to stay for a weekend and have a profoundly fearful or negative experience at all?
Not usually. If somebody comes here, they already had those experiences, and they come here to clear that. And that usually gets taken away, or we clear that out. And most people don't. The energy is so high here, and there's a lot of protection here. We just don't really have that situation. But every once in a while, somebody will come, and they're already a mess, and they feel the energy here, and they'll just turn around and take off because they don't want to heal whatever they're dealing with.
I see. Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, and actually, one of those people, I think you were more than hinting at on your the 2008 lecture I saw, was the nephew of George Bush. Is that right?
Yeah, no, he did really well here. He loved the place, actually.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay, I thought it was the opposite. I misread.
Yeah, no, he he had some lessons while he was here, some lessons in humility and things like that. But he got through his lessons and loved the place.
So, what are these? What do people do to heal? What are the lessons? Is it all meditation? Is there something else going on? Like you said, information downloads. Is there? Yeah. Is that part of it?
Well, yeah. What we do is we do several things here. We do some very ancient practices that are Qigong, and it's like a Qigong, but it's our Neigong. There's different types of this, but a lot of it is focusing on consciousness and energy and letting your energy channels open, and a lot of healing comes through that. We do process-oriented therapies where we sit down and bring in the energy, and then I have an ability where I can read somebody's books, and I can go through their life and pull their patterns out where they had trauma or whatever, and hit that pattern and clear it, and it clears very quickly, and then also connect them into their other things that happened in their life that they have other connections to or other systems. So there's a lot of different modalities going on here, and we have scientists and healers and teachers from all over the world coming here doing lectures and workshops, and I think it's up to the individual to pick whichever modality works for them.
Do the beings give any new useful information?
They do. When people leave here, they have their own contact going. They have their own information coming to them, and that's what it's all about, is empowering the individual. And they get a lot of personal things, and lately we have 2 just recent cases of cancer just completely disappearing with people, and thyroid, problems where they're on heavy medication. All of a sudden their thyroid just balances itself out with no explanation, and tumors disappearing and things like that. So a lot of good things are happening here, with these contacts and with the land and whatever else is going on. There's so many levels to it. But it's up to the individual what they experience here. I always tell them I don't take blame or credit for anything. It's between you and Spirit, whatever happens, and I'm just here to facilitate, something good, hopefully.
So are all these beings on the same page with what Spirit means?
Pretty much, yeah. I would say they all have a completely different concept of they don't have God as a little old man with a beard with lightning bolts, waiting to punish anybody that steps out of his rule book. They don't run that program. There are a lot of different beings out there that have reached extremely high levels of consciousness and that are assisting, that some would revere as gods, just like the people in ancient times. A lot of our history has encounters with some very advanced beings, and some were benevolent, and there were some low-level contacts that weren't so benevolent, but, that's all in the history books.
I was on a message board, and I think it was ATS, where people were saying that they were sort of disregarding you at this point because they said you were working with Greer, which I thought was not true. Is that true? Are you working with Greer?
No, I'm not.
But he did come to the ranch.
Yeah, he did. He did come to the ranch quite a while ago, and he did an ambassador training. And
at what point did you get sick of him?
I think I'll leave that one alone, but we aren't. Just let's say we aren't working with Greer.
Well,
Fair enough.
Well, when someone like Greer, who comes in and has their own sweeping idea of how things work and what all of this stuff is, when someone like that comes to the ranch, I mean, is it a clash of thought there? I mean, do you get along with those types of people, or does everybody sort of cling to what they think is going on? How does that sort of work?
Most of the people that come here are very intelligent, and they can sense, things when things are true and when they're not, and they sense when egos are run amok. They can see through that stuff, and so I just leave it up to the people, and if they come and ask me, I'll comment on it and just say, well, trust your inner guidance. If you're feeling this isn't right for you, then it's probably not. But I think it's really important to not really talk about yourself so much, but talk about the information and empower people to have their own contact. Sitting 6 days with somebody talking just about their program and themselves and what they've done, it gets a little tough on you.
Right. So what's it like for you? You make it a point to say over and over again, I'm not the guru, I'm a nobody, and all of that, but people must still to this day approach you with, that sort of twinkle in their eye, like this is the one who knows and all that. How do you deal with other people's issues? I'm sure that must come up a lot for you at that ranch. I mean, how do you deal with people just in being a centered person and seeing what I'm sure are a lot of out of touch people coming to you for guidance?
Basically, anybody here at the ranch will tell you I'm a very, very earthy guy, and I do things to dismiss that right away. So if they come with that guru look in their eye, they're usually I'll usually do something that pretty much kills that right away. But it's something we're very intent on here. We just don't allow it. We don't allow worship outside yourself, and we inspire people to keep their discernment and trust their own inner guidance and work on those levels. We don't, if people ask us questions, we say, well, this is our experience, but, there's always more to the story.
I'm still stuck on one thing, just to back up for a second. Why is it that we have to rely on pictures? Why do we have to rely on photos and then have a belief about it? Why can't they just? I mean, it's the pedestrian thing of why don't they just land? Why don't they?
Well, people go, why don't they land on the White House lawn? And that's a no-brainer. There's no intelligent life there. And they haven't met the criteria of pure intent, open mind, and loving heart. And we've all seen that. So, I mean, they're looking for people of high integrity that are service-oriented, and they're doing it on their terms, basically. And I always tell people are trying to control this, and they're saying, I can command a contact or I can command a ship to come down and things like that. And they asked me to do that, to summon the ships, and I started laughing. I think it's funny. I said, you don't summon these beings. I said, you invite them, and you're damn lucky if they show up. It just doesn't work that way. But, we have to deal with this without ego and with a high respect and regard and be grateful for what we do get, basically, because this isn't for everyone, and people will grab onto this information and misuse it and try to create a following or things like that, or capitalize on it and things of that nature. And so we really stress on that this, we don't have a membership. We don't have anybody paying membership dues or anything else, and I've stayed away from that. And there's no following here. It's just like-minded people coming to check things out.
How has your views on all of this stuff, how has it changed over the years? I mean, where are you now as opposed to where you were when you were first confronted by this larger reality?
Well, I had experiences ever since I was a kid, and my parents came from New Mexico, so that should clue you in on that one, and they were involved in that situation. So, and my dad had always seen the ships, but he never talked about it. But every once in a while, he'd pull me outside and he'd say, look, and he'd point up, and there'd be, 5 light ships flying right together. And that happened several times. And so, but he never talked about it, really. He just pointed out and said, look, and we just accepted it. Being raised in the high desert, we saw things flying around up there all the time that we couldn't explain. So but when I had my first encounter, it turned my world upside down because I felt the most loving, joyous presence. It makes you almost giddy when you feel their energy, and they were telepathically talking to me. And I thought I was talking to some kind of angelic presence or a really high being, and then they told me they were on a ship. And so that turned my reality upside down, and I thought I was losing it. And I went to go outside to get grounded, and start planting some trees or something. And my sisters came up banging on the door, and some of their friends, and asked me if I saw it. And I said, see what? And there was a ship hovering right over the ranch here.
You said they were into Roswell? They were somehow involved in Roswell, your parents?
Yeah, my grandmother and my grandfather owned the hardware store there, and they sold the Swinsons a lot of their farm equipment, and they knew the foreman, is it Frizzell or Frazzle? I'm not sure how to say it, Frazzle, whatever. And they knew them really well, and also the sheriffs, the first responders, went to my grandmother to talk to her because she was the kind of like the patriarch of the town. She was the school teacher, and everybody knew her. And she said that they couldn't even hold a cup of coffee. They were shaking so much, and she said they were white. She said they were white as a ghost, and their whole world was just turned upside down. And they said they couldn't tell her much, but they said that we're not alone, and they just needed to talk to somebody about it, But they said we can't tell you too much, but it was right after they went out and responded, to what happened out there. So she, my grandmother said these boys are honest as the day is long. They're good old boys and salt of the earth. And they said they were badly shaken up. And she found out later, talked to them later, and they told her the rest of the story. But they also told her, you cannot breathe a word of this to anybody. So.
I want to go back to the bouncing ball of light that bounced into your chest.
If I can interject one thing here.
Sure.
I just thought I'd throw this out. Did everyone hear the noise that just occurred while James was talking? Mm-mm. Did you, Jeremy?
No. What was it?
I had the door latched. I had it latched and shut. And it came unlatched and opened with no help.
Oh, I heard a door open. I thought that was on James's end.
No, that was my end.
Huh.
Yeah,
Just throwing that in there.
Well, there you
that
go.
does happen. I hope your equipment stays together because sometimes they play havoc on equipment.
Yeah, we've got a lot of weird stuff in this house, James. You have no idea.
Well, what I wanted to ask is, when something bounces into your chest, does that freak you out? Are you expecting this? Like, what is your reaction to that?
Yeah.
And what did it actually do?
Well, what happened, this is the interesting part, and this is, I can't really prove any of this because I couldn't film it or anything, but I was actually in the bathtub, and I was meditating. I do a lot of my meditation work in the bathtub because it's a very safe, warm place, and you can totally relax and connect and, zip out a body now and then.
So wait a second. You've got this giant land of beauty and myth and lore, and you prefer the bathtub to meditate?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great. But anyway, I was in the bathtub, and I was, in my head, I was meditating, I was talking, and telepathy, I was sending it out there, and I was telling them that I was fed up with what was going on there, all the little balls of light flying around and way up in the sky and nothing tangible. And I just said, I want to know what this is about. Why does this concern me? What's my purpose in this? And like everybody else, I was just saying, there's lights up there. You're zipping around doing crazy maneuvers and everything else, but so what? This is getting old. And next thing you know, this beam comes right through the wall and hits me square in the chest. And it was a gold beam of light, and then 3 gold balls came down the beam and hit me in the chest. And they explained to me later what that was. But they told me my memories were returned to me, all of my memories, and those balls of light had consciousness and energy in them, and all of a sudden they had a rapid replay of all the different lives I've had, and it was just amazing. And then the next thing you know, they pulled me out of body up on the ship and had a talk with me and then sent me back. So there's a lot more than just a dancing ball, there's a lot more that happened in that experience.
Well, I'll tell you what, James. I mean, I know we're kind of running short on time here, but I just want to say that I'm definitely going to take a look at more of your stuff, and I'm going to probably email you for some questions and whatnot over I mean, I hope you'll come back at some point onto the show and talk about whatever we come over here and check out. But I can, just in the course of this hour of talking to you, I can genuinely hear why ufology doesn't care for you. Because I'll tell you, and this is it, I think ufology looks for a scared, upset, frightened by this phenomena kind of person, or a person who is completely neutral in the sense of whatever they choose to call this, or however they choose to call it. And you decidedly, I mean, I'm going to say this to you with all respect, I mean, you draw a lot of conclusions that I would not. And I wouldn't say that I'm like the most comfortable guy in the world when it comes to some of the terminology that you use. But that's your perception, it's your reality of dealing with and seeing these things and experiencing these things. And I don't think anybody can take that away from you. But in this community, I think when people hear that, they immediately clam up and say, he's a raving New Ager, and I don't want anything to do with this. Because often the terminology and the language, which Jeremy and I have talked a lot about language on this show, and how to describe these things and describe experiences that you can't really qualify. I mean, those things happen a lot. That terminology is everything. And when people hear even something as innocuous as energy or anything to do with spirituality at all, I think a lot of people within ufology just completely clam up.
Well, this is physics. I mean, basically, I can explain it to them on a straight physics level if they want. And we've had physicists out here that have had these experiences. And Brooks Agnew was here, Renato Longato, and John Riley, who is a Lockheed engineer, were here at the last conference after an intention experiment, and the ship flew right over the building, and they all filmed it. So we have, 200 witnesses that were involved in the experiment walking outside, seeing this incredible pinkish-orange light ship fly right over the building, and multiple cameras on it and several videos of it. So when you have evidence like that, how do you argue that? And if, I can't really apologize for having a greater understanding of the phenomena, but, the way I see it is that I can just share what I know and people can do with it what they wish.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's, and when you say intention experiment, is that the intent of wanting to see something, focusing your intent on a desire for such as a sighting of some sort? Is that how that more or less works?
Exactly. And I did one on Coast to Coast, actually, and they had their lines just shut down. They said they had so many phone calls and so many sightings and so many emails that it just basically shut them down. And it kind of blew Art's mind, and that was one of his last his last appearances, you might say, on Coast to Coast.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, for my money, I think you're, and this is strictly, again, my filter going through things like this is like, I totally agree with you that there's a lot to do with the focus of intent with this phenomena. And essentially, for me, it's been everything in my own experiences have been pretty much following in line with as much focus or as much strength of thought that I put to focusing on the phenomena. What is it? Asking these bigger questions that aren't necessarily like, what are they made of, or where do they come from, or the bigger things like, what is this all about? What do they want? What am I here for? What is that? What is my relationship to that, and why?
That's
those
more
kind
important in my book.
Yeah, that's kind of coincided routinely with. You mentioned someone talking about overload. For a good few years, my life was a three-ring circus with this stuff, and I think focus of intent is a big, big deal with this. And luckily, I think you're in a spot where you may have a lot of things working for you as far as sightings go. You've got the low light level pollution, you've got a beautiful rural area, somewhat secluded, I would gather.
There's a long history here, too, that with Kenneth Arnold actually lost sight of the ships when they landed on the western slopes of Mount Adams, and Dr. J. Allen Hynek, David Akers, Greg Long, Bill Vogel, all those guys have done research up here, and the Native Americans know all about it. They go in-depth into it. So,
very interesting.
Long history of activity here.
Yeah. Jeremy, you got anything else before we blast away?
Why don't you tell us a bit about your DVD and where people can get it so that doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they actually came out here and made a movie. John Savage and Michael Knight are the producers of it with Dreams Come True TV, and it's called Contact Has Begun. And it gives the whole story about the event and shows some of the footage, and it talks about the shifts and changes that we're going through in the future, and a lot of that is unfolding right now that's actually in the movie. But it goes very in-depth to the whole process and shows the black helicopters flying over and all the other things going on, too, as well. So it's quite a exciting life here that's going on. That's all I can say. But, they can get it through. You can actually go to Netflix. It's on Netflix. Or you can go to ECETI.org and go to the website and get it there. There's several other places that are carrying it, but that's the best place to go, to the website. And then there you can get any of the books or the other DVDs or the talks of all the other internationally known speakers and around the world are all on the website.
Mm-hmm. And I guess finally, do you... give us a little insider baseball here. How are we doing at the fork in the road? Which way are we leaning, do you think? I'm trying to think really positive, but, when I see these Gulf oil things and things like that, I just go, my God, when are people going to get it? And then I see the news, mainstream news on, hey, come jump in the ocean, no problem. And then you see James Fox interview and he sends me things where the water is 150 times more toxic than necessary to kill all the fish in the water samples. It's pretty sad, I think, where we're going. But I do have hope, and I think we can turn things around. But we just need a huge influx of integrity and courage to come into this planet for people to stand up and just say enough. And do these beings have? Well, I guess 2012 is sort of the date, right?
Yeah, they're building up. I mean, we're going to be seeing them. They're showing up everywhere around the world right now, but it's going to be en masse real soon. I don't know the exact date, but it's going to be so obvious that you won't be able to deny it. It'll be a global event. That
they're here, you're talking about?
Yeah. The real disclosure is going to come from the skies, basically.
Well, and, if that happens, what meaning will people ascribe to that? I mean, is it going to happen at a point where everyone's sort of ready for that to happen, or will we get into ready mode once it happens? I mean, or will it just be complete chaos? I mean, what happens when that happens?
Well, I think it's already building up to that point. I mean, I read a Time CNN poll, which they dismissed. I don't know, but I saw the numbers on it, and 86% of the people said that the UFOs do exist and there is a government cover-up. So I think at least 86% of the people are going to go, oh, my God, this is real. And that's what people do. Even people in the ufology, they come here. They've been in the field for years and years and years, but when it's in your face, they go into shock at first. They don't even pick their cameras up or anything. It's amazing. And then when it's real, but I think when they do start showing themselves, and they're doing it in China and O'Hare and all these other places, things are happening and people are seeing it. And Mexico is crazy. There are so many ships, flying over Mexico right now and Brazil. But, it's going to just continue to increase. And I think a good idea would be to stop greeting them aggressively and stop shooting at them, because in the interest of national security, that's a no-brainer. You don't start shooting at beings that are thousands of years ahead of you in technology and evolution. But if we stopped, greeting them aggressively and trying to shoot them down, we would start having contact, and they would be able to come in and assist us, in many of these challenges that we have facing us today.
Well, James, thank you very much for doing the show. And is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to be asked?
How about an invitation to come up and see it for yourself?
Ah, really? You're throwing that out there?
Yeah. Bring your cameras up. Bring all your gear up.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll set that up.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to anybody that's serious, that really wants to, do some serious research here, and people have. And the sad thing about it is some people did come up here and did some serious research, and then they sanitized it and altered everything, which pretty much established their character, not ours.
Right. Well, we certainly are unsanitary? No. I don't want to put that out there. But yeah, we would. I would love to take you up on that offer. Sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll definitely throw you an email for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we just had Hendricks with Red Ice just left here, and he got to see some things. And the Veritas show, he was just here, and he had his mind totally blown. So you ought to give them a call and ask them what they experienced.
Will do. Thank you very much. All right, James Gilliland, thank you for the last hour of your life.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye now.
Hi, this is Ted Phillips, and you're listening to Paratopia.
If you record audio for any purpose, chances are you want it to be heard. You want to attract the largest audience possible who can hear your message. That's where we come in. We're CyberEars.com, a revolutionary internet service that will host your audio files and help you promote and track its popularity. Considering hosting a podcast to the world? We have all the automated tools to make the process as simple and easy as it can be. No technical mumbo-jumbo to work out. CyberEars.com does all the work for you. You record it, we take care of the rest. So don't delay. Go to CyberEars.com today and register for a free trial account. Upload your audio files and get heard. With CyberEars.com, it's your audio on your terms.
Hey kids, it's Jeremy, and in case you have not heard the news, I am now also co-hosting The Black Fridays with Stacey Lowry. So, when I'm not here on Fridays for Paratopia, I'm at the Black Fridays on Sunday for the Black Fridays. Wait, what? Anyway, theblackfridays.net is where you can find me on Sundays with co-host Stacey Lowry doing this but to broader subject material, like Atlantis and stuff. Although we haven't done Atlantis yet. Crap, are we going to do Atlantis? So the Jeff. I guess this is the part of the show where we're supposed to come out and bash James Gilliland and tell everyone what a fraud he is and how he was a real estate man and now he's still selling us real estate by way of this ranch. Is that what we're supposed to do? And then trash him?
I would think there's going to be a percentage of the audience that thinks we should go that way.
Huh, interesting. What's the way we're going to go?
Well, I'm not inclined to say that. I mean, as I told him during the interview, I think that the reason, or one of the reasons probably, that ufology has kind of made him the bastard stepchild is that it's the terminology that he uses. It's the way that he processes what's going on. In that, I don't know. He tries to define things, and by going and looking these things up, he defines them based on that. It seems to me that's the way I took it. Like I said, I mean, I had to look at his website, and there are some photographs on there. If you go to the ECETI website, which is scary, by the way, of how close it sounds to CSETI.
Yes, coincidence?
At ECETI, when I looked at some of the photographs on there, I mean, there are some interesting ones on there that are daylight that seem to show some weird things. But they're very small JPEGs that I couldn't really get a great look at. But still, I mean, they're interesting nonetheless. Do I see anything there that's humongous structured things? No, I don't. So, I mean, that leaves me wanting a little bit for that.
See, I think this whole focus on photographs and video, especially that even he concentrated on the show and kept trying to bring it back to that. Like, no, you got to look at the footage and you'll come here and take the... We don't care about that. I mean, really, here's what I cared about. When you said that your door had unlatched and his response was, well, that'll happen, and you might want to check out your electrical equipment too because they like to play with that. Well, that's something that when the electrical equipment is played with, men like you and I will look at each other and go, oh my God, what is this? Isn't this poltergeist-like activity creepy? And he looks at that and goes, oh, that's the aliens being playful. So we're talking about the same thing. He's not talking about those things. He's just putting a different spin on it. And I wonder, is that so bad? I mean, and then I think about, it's outlandish to me to think about a light council or whatever from an Orion council or a Pleiadian whatever, and that these beings are here because they care about us personally and all that. But is that any different, I ask of you, than me having a giant I am experience at the end of which a woman says, do we humans not understand that other planets cannot help us if we continue to block them out and kill ourselves? Is it any different than a man coming into your room and calling you to the living room and sitting you down and telling you that, in fact, most of your personal issues are the problem and that you have to deal with your personal issues, and then saying some of the same sorts of things that I think Gilliland would agree with? I mean, is this just different spins on the same thing, just being filtered differently through different people with different temperaments?
Yeah, I think the operative word there is filter. I think that he's got a much different way of looking at this. And I might also point out that when I asked him, had anyone had like a really negative experience there, and he said no, it's probably because when you go to his place, and remember what I've said about this so many times is like, we're going to be having Nick Redfern on, who's just written this great book about the whole satanic angle with ufology and some sort of covert little operation that's convinced. Right. And all of that. I mean, again, and I've said a lot of times that, back, good Lord, 12, 13 years ago, I mean, that was kind of like where I had arrived to up to the current time. It's like, man, this really does look like demonic, even though we don't know what that means. and I've spoken on this before, where you talk about somebody like Dorothy Izot who has positive experiences until somebody puts a negative spin on it, and then she has negative experiences, and then she has to recenter herself to the positive in order to have positive experiences with it. And so you have to wonder, if someone goes to the ranch, are they so surrounded by people with positive intentions and positive focuses towards this that it presents itself in a completely different way? I mean, it does present a reflection of a seemingly. I mean, this is. I mean, again, I'm completely theorizing here, but it seems to fit with my own stuff and things I've heard with other people. That it seems to reflect back what you think of it, or it seems to answer or mirror those things. And so, if it's mirroring what it's seeing at the ranch, it's all positive. And so, therefore, James is going to paint it with, and here it comes, Jer. He's going to paint it with the unicorn hair brush. I've been waiting all day to say that. I mean, because really, you go to James's site, and it's all purple and black, and there's a painting on the front of, these peaceful-looking beings and all of that. I mean, it's all well and good, and that is the way that they treat it. And therefore, that's why they have positive experiences with it, and why there's not people shrieking and running for cover. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm seeing him come from, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And again, let's go back. God knows how many episodes it's been now. Let's go back to when I was telling people on our board, look, you have to ignore the terminology sometimes and look at how people are expressing themselves, interacting with something unknown. And this is how James basically relates this experience. And I still think that there's value there. I'm not comfortable with the terminology, and I told him so. You know, I mean,
well, the value there is exactly what he said, which is this land had this stuff going on before I acquired it. It's a well-known hotspot. I mean, that's it. So whatever filter you put on that hotspot is what's going to come through, I guess, is what we're contending. Hypothetically, anyway.
Yeah.
And why not good instead of bad? Why wouldn't you want Santa and not Satan?
Yeah.
But
nice.
what I found interesting, a couple of things we talked to him for a while after the show, and a couple of things came up. One is he had talked about some new group of like feline entities coming to the ranch, and that he then had to look it up and see what the lore is around that. I think I'm getting that right if I'm remembering correctly.
I think you're right.
I wish he had said during the show, because I had asked him, is this mostly from your experience, or is this stuff that you've read? And he had said, well, people send me stuff to read all the time and I don't read it. But I think the sort of truthier truth here is that he has his own experiences, and he has people tell him things that are happening to them on the ranch, and it all goes into this salad that he presents as what's going on at the ranch, whether it's been verified by his own experience or not. And if he reads about it, say, interdimensional Pleiadians, if you find that in Google and then look at the lore, well, then you've got the backstory to that. So I think, just my own personal opinion, when he presents, the Terence McKenna dilemma of having too much information, isn't that what he says about ufology?
Yeah, everybody claims too much information.
Well, I think part of the problem of claiming too much information is not saying up front, well, this is what I've studied, this is what people have told me, they've seen, and this is what my experiences are. And I think when you put them all in a smorgasbord like that and say, this is what's going on, well, of course people are going to come to you and start seeing you as a guru. If
number one, yes.
If that's part of his problem, is people seeing him as a guru and he doesn't want that, of course they're going to, because you claim to have this knowledge that you're not differentiating the sources of.
And can we also say that in the sense of, like you liken it to a salad, when you're presenting that, you can talk all you want to about, all these people with the alphabet soup on the end of their name coming to your ranch and seeing some very strange things and being bewildered by it. That's important to say. I mean, granted, I think that's important to say. But when you dice up
Michael Sala, Wendell Stevens.
Right. When you put all of these elements into it, that's where it becomes a problem. Well, because ultimately you get tarred with the same brush. I mean, long ago, this is what Hynek told Dorothy Izot. Stay away from the fringe because you'll all be tarred with the same brush. Stay to yourself, and I think James, in the notion that he takes of this open door policy, I think, unfortunately, as many good people as he's had up there wanting to critically examine what's going on, and he's completely open to that, which is very much to his credit, in my opinion. You're also going to get
Michael Sala,
the less desirable, I would say.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I almost I'm hoping that James is listening to this because I almost kind of want to tell him, please, when you're saying we've had whatever it is, Boeing engineers and NASA people, and they stayed for 6 months because they couldn't get enough, and they came here to debunk it and all of that. You can't stay there. Stay on that.
That's all you need.
Don't then go to, and any exopolitical person will swear that because once you say that, then you cross
everybody
the line
turns
into
off.
the ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. Everybody turns off.
And I feel that might be, I mean, this gets into the Strieber problem of not knowing who these people are and taking them at their word, which is something that Strieber gets in trouble for all the time on the net with listeners. You can't take these people at their word. They're awful, awful men. Many of them.
In your opinion.
In my opinion. No, in fact, they're awful, awful men. And I stand, and this represents me and not Jeff Ritzman, so send your lawsuits my way. But I mean, all you need to do is look at, again, Chet the Alien from the Examiner.com.
Right. Ridiculous.
I mean, they just present ridiculous, inquiring minds want to know type stuff. And you don't need that at your ranch, James. You really don't. But I again, anytime I want to say, well, this is preposterous, he invited us. In fact, not only did he invite us to the ranch, he said the one question he wanted us to ask was, can we come to the ranch?
Right.
As I said, was there any question you wanted to be asked? So that to me implies that he really does believe that this stuff is real. So he's not, I don't think he's lying, is what I'm getting at.
I don't either.
So I would love to go to the ranch. I mean,
man, I would too. Yeah. I think it'd be really interesting.
Maybe I'll meet a freaking alien from the Orion Council and be like, I was wrong. And then I'll come back on the show and be like, nah, that wasn't a cultural filter. That was actually an alien from Orion's belt coming here to do the work. Whatever.
And you'll be painting pictures with a unicorn hair brush.
I don't care. I want to be. Well, do I want to be afraid of this? I mean, come on. Do I want this to be a big mystery forever? Eventually, I want my unicorn brush.
Right. I mean, clearly something's going on there, and I hold true to the nature of the people coming there. Most likely are not used to seeing a sky unfettered with light pollution from a nearby city. You probably do, let's admit, you probably do see a lot more satellites, a lot more, astronomical bodies up there that you would not see in a suburban area. And I still think that may account for part of what they see there. However, some of the things that I look at on the website, in as much as there are ones on there that I go, that is interesting, there are other ones that are birds. And I don't just mean, I think they're birds. I can see wings, beaks, tails. They're birds, okay? So I think there might be a slight lack of discernment.
Yeah.
But let's qualify that by saying if you're inundated by this stuff up there, as he said, and not only just him, but other people who have gone to see what's going on there have been blown away by what they've seen, then it almost makes sense that you would get a little jumpy to conclusions when it comes to what you're seeing. Well, that's got to be them because it did this and it did that. But you can get overwhelmed and oversensitized to this, to where, I mean, I think I've spoken before of a guy in Scranton, PA, that he was seeing UFOs on a nightly basis, had never seen anything in his life, and was seeing very strange stuff on a nightly basis. And when I went up there to stand beside him and look, he was pointing out airplanes. I mean, there were very clearly airplanes to the point where you would hear, I mean, like, it's an airplane. No, that's them. That's them. I'm like, no, that's a fucking airplane. I think you can easily lose discernment. And so I think James has some interesting photographs on there that I would love to look at more. And there are some on there that to me are clearly birds. And much of what I saw on Above Top Secret, when they came back from their little jaunt out there, I looked at it and I go, it's bugs, birds, and like dandelion fairies floating across, and I don't mean literal fairies. We always called them fairies. Did you call them fairies?
I think we called them like will-o'-the-wisps or something.
Wisps, yeah, little wisp, the little plant, ejaculations were floating across the screen. I mean, it's clearly what they were. So I didn't see anything that really impressed me out of what they captured there. It's a really interesting thing to me that it is exactly what I've talked about before, is like this always an escape hatch. There's always a way out, James paints with a unicorn brush. Some of the stuff's birds. Some of it's not. We've got guys coming here who are top of their field aeronautics engineers, and on the other hand, we've got,
Stephen
Greer. There. I mean, you've got this really, like, man, from one extreme to the other, So I don't know. I mean, it certainly seems interesting. I would love to go there. But any way you cut it, James Gilliland seems to be a fairly open guy and is all too eager to have people come up there and take a look at what's going on. So how can you fault that?
You can't fault
that.
You can't fault that. In putting a webcam out there, which is something that you and I have toyed with the idea of doing with our own places. So he's actually doing it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Great.
Yeah, that's really cool. And because right now the only one that I actually watch is the Hess Dahlen cam that they have set up, which has been rolling on. Every once in a while, I'll flip that on at night and watch that.
I don't know what that is.
Well,
is that the two cute little panda bears that play with each other in the China Zoo? Chef, I didn't know.
No.
Is that your unicorn brush?
We'll save it because I'm trying to get somebody on from this. The Hess Dahlen phenomena is light phenomena that occurs a lot over a particular area, and they've set up a webcam to kind of document this online. It's always available. It's always out there. I'll throw a link up and people can look at it. They can read about it. I don't want to go too much into it here because I'm trying to recruit somebody to come on the show and talk about the whole thing because it's fascinating. But yeah, I mean, that would be great for James to put up a webcam there, and that way we could all sit at home and watch and see what we see.
Now, what do you make of who was it? Mark Anthony? Who's the singer that went out there?
Oh, Mark Anthony.
What the fuck is his name? Ricky Martin.
Hold on.
Millennium.
His name's Robbie Robertson.
Robbie Williams. That's it.
Robbie Williams, that's
You're
it.
thinking of Robbie the Robot. So what do you make of the biggest mystery of all, Robbie Williams singing Beatles songs when clearly he's a famous award-winning singer-songwriter? Doesn't
everybody like the Beatles?
Good point.
I like the Beatles.
You waited all that time for that.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out the name so I can make that joke. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, he's clearly got a keen interest, eh? I mean...
well, he's had some things happen to him, but what do you make of the ATS? I mean, did you get a hold of Mark Allen or even Johnny Anonymous to see if he was miraculously healed?
No, I wrote Mark Allen today about coming on. I have sent the invitation. I told him basically a roundabout summary of what was said. And I admitted, I said right to him in the email, I said, and I also mentioned that, I had done a lot of image work for you guys, just cases big and small, all the way down the line for quite a while. And then all of a sudden this came up and I didn't get footage sent to me on this. And I was told I would, but it never showed up. So I mentioned that during the interview. I thought it was a little odd. Would you like to come on and talk about what you guys experienced and what your conclusions were? Because I would love to get his side too. So I have sent that invitation out, and we'll see if he See if he wants to come on. I'm sure he's very busy right now, but I haven't heard back yet.
But I would love to. Yeah, I mean, it seemed that they were pretty gung ho about what they had gotten at first, even on their forum, right?
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way,
it
all went south. But it seemed like a relationship breakup more than anything.
Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm kind of middle of the road about it because I honestly don't know what transpired there. But I know that they devoted a great deal of effort to getting the films that they shot up onto the web, up onto the boards. Talked about it quite a lot. Johnny Anonymous, former host of the ATS Mix show. I did write him at one point, and he said that he had given Mark a DVD to give to me at, I think, Culture Contact. And so I wasn't there for that, but I would have thought he would have given it to you or something, or sent it, but I've never.
Nobody was there for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the bottom line is I never got it, so I don't know. I've watched just about all of them that they've put up on the web, and like I said, I didn't see anything there that was compelling at all for ufological things.
Well, you know what's funny is like I said, I had watched this 2008 lecture that he gave, and that came equipped with slides. And, James is telling you what you're seeing. So he's saying, this patch of darkness here is a ultra-terrestrial being, or whatever it is, is an ancient being, he said. So you'd see fog, and then you'd see the patch of darkness, because fog is not uniform, and so that darkness is supposed to be a being. And I'm watching this and going, I'm just not believing this. But then there are certain things that are light patterns that don't look like orbs, and they don't look like any other light patterns, and it looks like people are seeing them. And this is like at the part where like Standing Elk is there, and he's saying this is what the Native Americans say are their ancestors. And I found that interesting because those did seem anomalous, and here you have this sort of almost Native American endorsement of it. So I thought that was interesting, and I believe Jody Heckman, who we need to thank for setting us up with Mr. Gilliland, he wanted to come and do a little intro to this, but he's unfortunately has to work really well for 48 hours straight. I was going to say really late, but that's actually above and beyond really late. But I haven't looked at it yet, unfortunately, but he sent me a CD with his photos from up there, and I believe he said some of them are what the Native Americans call, they're dead, their spirits. So
did he relate to you any of his sighting experiences? I mean, did he see anything beyond a light that would move erratically, or?
Well, Jody was in the military, so he knows our temperament, so he feels that he has to preface everything with like, don't think I'm crazy, and then here's my resume. Okay. So he's saying, I was in the military, I have not a lot of flight training, but about 10 hours. I know what different satellites look like. I know what different things look like. And I'm telling you that even if some of these things look like satellites on video or on photo, you have to be there to see them because they are not satellites. This is what he's trying to impress in me. Now, of course, I'm not you, so I wouldn't know a satellite from a UFO at this point. I mean, beyond normal thing. Like when I saw the triangular pattern, I mean, I would have assumed that was something special. I didn't realize satellites flew in triangulated form.
Yeah, triads, yeah, triad satellites.
So that shows what I know. I don't know anything. So I'm the wrong person to actually have the CD, so I'll have to bring it to you or send it to you. But
yeah.
But he said that not only did he have neato experiences and photos, but his sister, who was the one who really, really wanted to go, ended up bringing it back with her, essentially hearing voices. She ended up hearing a lot of chatter and things like this, and she went to someone, I don't know if it was a psychic or what it was, but it was someone who said, I don't know what happened to you, but all of your chakras are open up, and you're not ready for this, so I'm going to do something to close them, because all of them are open at once, and you're having an influx of, like a medium, of different spirits who can sense you and are trying to come through you and talk to you. And that's why you're hearing these voices, and so I'm going to shut that off.
What?
And then shut that off for her, yeah. So, that's interesting to me, and that makes me wonder about when I was first going through this, and I had, this energy experience, and I was having what I was calling clair audio, which was hearing a bunch of bep, 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 bep. babbling people
Right.
that I couldn't quite make out. Maybe that's what that was, who knows? It sounded just like a room full of people all talking over each other.
Huh. Curious.
Yeah.
See, I can't relate to that kind of stuff. I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I'm not saying I disbelieve it or I believe it or anything like that, but I don't know what to do with that because I don't know anything about it. But I find it interesting that something happened to her away from the ranch, that she came away from that experience with some sort of weirdness going on.
Yeah, and I don't remember all of what happened at the ranch, but I guess it was a pretty powerful time for them both. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like it's an amazing place, and I think we're gonna have to get there. I really do. I think we're gonna have to get there. I don't know if I'll be able to stay there, but I'll certainly go. So what's our end result here? It's
our end result is that we are fine with our fear. And so
we're
going to call this filters, so that way we don't have to deal with the fact that we're haunted and he's happy. I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can put it much better than that. I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, clearly he is he's not only at peace with this, he's loving this. I mean, he's loving this. And of course, immediately...
Well, who else is a huge fan is Susan Kornacki, who we had on the show.
Yeah.
And she also is at peace and loving this. So...
Yeah.
Maybe we're just in the wrong end of this business, is the deal.
Well, I tend to think of myself as a lot more cautious, let's put it that way. I mean, that's how I look at it.
But imagine if you didn't know that Michael Salo was a creep, and imagine if you didn't know... it didn't matter to you whether it was bugs or spirits or aliens. Like, it all just was good. Like, why is that bad? Don't you want that sometimes? Don't you? Ignorance is bliss kind of thing?
No. No. I mean, I like Susan, don't get me wrong. But, I've seen her Facebook page. And, again... I think she's painting with a unicorn house brush at certain points. It's not that she's not an intelligent woman. It's not that I don't dislike her. It's just I like kind of this stuff. It's just the way I am. I mean, some of the stuff I look at it and I go, man, it just makes me tired. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm not trying to be rude. I mean, I like Susan. I like what she said on the show, but I just, And same with James. I like James. James is a superbly nice guy and really accommodating and a hell of a lot of fun to talk to. As I said to him, I can't get past some of the words make me uncomfortable, but I know as well as I've preached this that we have to look past that a little bit to see what really is going on. And I think the idea that they view it in a positive way and it interacts in a positive way, that's the lesson to take from this.
There's another lesson for you and me here, which is that we're overlooking, which is that, as much as we have an aversion to that language, people have an aversion to our language.
Absolutely.
So you look at one thing and you go, oh, that's New Agey. You look at us and you're not a New Ager. You're going to go, oh, that's New Agey too. Is this the pot calling the kettle black?
Right.
We can try to be as rational and whatever as we want. The fact is, we're still having these weird experiences. And James, in his lecture, said he doesn't have a facility for New Age woo-woo, and he puts that in a gray basket until it proves itself. And I look at him and I go, you're insane to say that, because you are New Age woo-woo. You see what I'm saying? Right. And then someone looks at us and goes, well, wait, you're insane for saying that, because you're also New Age woo-woo. You can't get away from... Once you're in this, you're sort of by degree.
Well, I would say
part of this thing. And then the other thing that he said in the after chat was that he considers himself more scientific and skeptical. I mean, and I'm just saying that I look at that and I go, no, you're not. And then that reminds me that people look at me and go, no, you're not what you think you are either. So off your high horse, Vaeni.
Yeah. I mean, I've recently, I've been going to the our group blog and commenting more than a few times there. And I think it's been about a week and a half ago. that I went on, and I can't even remember what Mr. Reynolds put up as a post, but it led me into trying to write up and describe the feedback theorem that I've talked about on the show before. And so I wrote it up and I sent it to you, and I said, does this articulate this well enough in a written form? And you're like, yeah, that's it. And so I went ahead and I posted it up, and Rich Reynolds had said, it was interesting and it was different and it was another way to look at this. But immediately, someone came on the board and or on the comment section and said, this is the kind of crap that religion is made off of, and this, that, and just like a complete teardown. And then said something to the effect of, whoever postulates these kinds of theories isn't up to the ET smarts. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And in the end, I ended up writing a reply to that saying, what do you think you know what this is? You honestly believe you know what this is? So there's a whole other contingency out there that looks at this from a nuts and bolts standpoint, and they're the ones that think they're doing science. Right. When they're and to a degree they are, because they're analyzing soil samples and they're analyzing readings off trees if something's brushed it or whatever. So there's a scientific sort of scientific approach to it, in that you're studying evidence, physical evidence, visual evidence. I've been there, done that. And I guess, at this point, to them, that's what we look like, the New Agers. Because we're postulating theories here that are a little bit deeper, but I don't think that are out of their. See, this is the difference. I think what we postulate is not out of the realm of something that science may have touched upon at a certain point, or is getting to these days to kind of elaborate a little bit on. Whereas I think when you start talking about Pleiadians and what do you say, the Orion Council and all of that kind of stuff, that to me speaks more of wish fulfillment, like we talk about jokingly in the beginning of the show. And I don't know, kind of that, what do you like, the Ashtar Commando stuff? Right, yeah. That speaks more to that folklore to me than the things that we talk about. I think there is a separation in what we're doing.
But you and I have both been touched by that type of dialogue. Me with what I said,
absolutely,
and you with your, the 7 rule the 9. Somebody says to you,
yeah.
Well, imagine if you believed that you knew what that meant, or you went and looked it up and found a meaning and then applied it to that, and then you would say, I know it. First of all, what this alien is telling me, you'd assume alien, and then here's what it means, the 7 rule of 9. But I think if you just keep it an open question, that's what you need to do. And I guess my end result for all of this is, or end statement, is that once again, whatever this is transrational. It transcends rationality. And as one Ken Wilber reminds us, that which transcends and includes. So it does away with the worst parts of what came before it, but it includes the best parts. So if you have irrationality, that's transcended and included within rationality, which is transcended and included within transrationality. But to a rational person who doesn't understand transrationality, it looks irrational.
Why don't you explain transrationality, please?
Something that is not completely silly, something that is, has, well, I don't want to say a root in, but it has a component of a transrational thing would have to be rational. There would have to be sensical part of it or a scientific part of it, but that would just be a component, and then it would go beyond that into the experiential. So in other words, there'd be a rational component by which one could explain parts of the transrational or all of it, but the transrational actually has to be experienced, not explained, not just made sense of by way of explanation. Because at a certain point, explanation fails us, and then it has to be lived in order to be fully understood.
It would diverge into woo, in other words, is what you're saying.
It would diverge into, in a way, but the woo is only woo when it doesn't contain the rational component, is what I'm saying.
Right.
When it's anchored there, then the tether can go as high as it wants.
Right. And let's not forget the words of the Reverend George Hansen, high priest of the trickster. There is a battle cry to the paranormal, and it is, make them look like a nut.
Yeah.
And there it is.
I don't know if the paranormal is making us look nuts or if we're doing it to ourselves, you know?
Well, I mean...
Because we're just confused about all of this. What is rational? What is transrational? What is irrational?
Well, I think certain things that present themselves are a little bizarre if they're talked about in complete honesty. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean just bizarre. I mean batshit bizarre. You know, I think the difference, and of course this is probably why over the past 2 decades I've been asked a couple times, have you been checked out by a psychologist? Yes, I have, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you are?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, the slight delusions of grandeur every now and then, but no. Because I don't hold it back from the weirdness. I mean, I try not to, because every part of this to me is important, even if it does make you look foolish in saying it, because it's so unbelievable. And I think what James does is he takes those portions and studies them and says, well, he's arrived at his answer to this. And so for his answer, doesn't it also go back to, the woman with the dancing Virgin Mary in her toilet? You realize at a certain point that she sees it and you don't. And, he's got his root on this. He's got a bead on it for him. And who the hell are we to negate it? Because he's experiencing it, we're not.
Well, the difference there is that I would believe that James is actually experiencing something.
Well, of course,
the dancing Mary in the tub was not there to be experienced.
I understand that. But, again, I mean, you're still talking about a guy who, by his own admission, doesn't have the amount of attention being paid to his place and what goes on there as really should be. And why not? And his answer to why not was that ufology has kind of turned their back on this. And why have they turned their back is because, much like the people who believe what he says is going on, and then he becomes the guru, that goes both ways. You're also seeing that from the side of the rationalist UFO researchers out there who look at that and go, he's a guru. He's trying to start a religion or something like that. And they're jumping to those conclusions without really examining what's going on. They immediately just dismiss it and say, this is not something I want to associate myself with because of the unicorn brush being painted here. And so that's really the problem. And like I said to him during the interview, the fact that he uses this terminology and that he has his own personal bead on it doesn't sit well. If you were cowering in your house, afraid to come out, you'd have people beating down your door going, what's going on? Let me investigate this. We can help. He doesn't need your help. He doesn't need your help. He doesn't need your hypnotherapy. He doesn't need you to qualify this for him. He knows that it's going on. That doesn't sit well with people, I think, in this community.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just don't even. I think when we even talk about, him, I think we're focusing too much attention on him, frankly, as are most people, because it's like the Emma Woods thing. It's like she's not the one that's on trial here. It's like he's not the one that's on trial here. The thing that's on trial is that property or UFO hotspot or a paranormal hotspot,
right?
And it seems like,
but again, it always is going to be. It is always going to be, though, the guy who brings the information out to the public. So that's always who it's going to be attached to.
Oh,
just so we can make that clear.
Sure.
If you're bringing something forward, then ultimately you're going to be the contact point and the face to that area. But you're right. It is more about what is that area? What does it mean? Why is it a hot spot? It was a hot spot long before him, but I found it really interesting that they do intention experiments.
Right.
Man, what I wouldn't give to see that on tape or be there for one of those. I bet that's a wild scene.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you're doing intention experiments with positivity.
Yeah.
You're getting these positive, happy results. I mean, I don't know. It all goes back to, for him, in my mind, to his near-death experience where God says, as you wish, to whatever. Mm-hmm. You want to go back? As you wish. You want to stay here? As you wish. And, the way he interpreted that experience is the way that we interpret this UFO experience. Of the more you give, the more you get. It's not good or evil. It's just reflecting back at you what you're giving to it.
Right.
So I don't understand why he's not seeing that in this, that this is the same thing happening here. It's all as you wish. I mean, if he wanted to see this as demonic, I guarantee you that Orion Council of Light would change its tune in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, I bet so. Yeah, I bet so too. I mean, it's I think
feline people will start clawing at you, and suddenly you're in a whole other situation.
Yeah, sure. I think it is basically just how he views it, and when people come there, whatever kind of quote unquote healing work that he's doing or whatever it is. It's all very positive there. I mean, I'm sure going there is a very friendly, positive, environment, and certainly it's beautiful. I mean, you look at the pictures, you can tell it's stunningly gorgeous. And James is such a kind, generous, obviously open guy. It probably would be hard to go there and not feel comfortable. I mean, because we talked to him for all of an hour and 15, hour and 20, and you talk to him like you've known him your whole life. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. He's just a super nice guy. So I figure when you go there and you're surrounded by all this positive stuff, you probably can't help but have some sort of positive experience with the phenomena if it decides to present itself. Which, interestingly enough, he said doesn't always happen.
Right.
That's another interesting part of it. That doesn't always happen.
If only we could talk more of that.
Well, no, I mean, he said that in an interview. Like, it's not an on-demand thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that too speaks to just the unpredictable nature of all of this stuff. I mean, like I said, I may not agree with his terminology or his conclusions with it, but I still respect the guy for coming on here and telling us about it. And he's certainly a nice man, and we will no doubt take him up on going out there. I would love to go.
Let me wrap up with this question, sort of bringing us back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And yet transcending and including the beginning, which is, so are we ever going to get beyond our filters? And if not, then is there a good or bad choice to be made here with how you view this?
Are we ever going to get past our filters?
And if not, then why not unicorns? Which feels better.
Why not anything? Yeah. I think changing the filters has to be fundamentally connected to how it would present itself at the onset. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if it gradually built up to a full-blown experience of some sort, that seems like it might be more tolerable to withstand. But this doesn't seem to want to work that way. I have seen the phenomena present itself in a very sudden and direct and unavoidable way, and you just feel like you want to duck down into your little hole and cover it up with dirt. I think on some level, how do you, and maybe James would be the person to ask, how do you get it to meet you halfway at a certain point and say, I don't want to be afraid of this anymore. I don't want to be blinded by the filter of the horror stories of ufology. I want to approach this at a point where I say, just give me something I can tolerate. I go back to what McKenna talks about with the mushroom. He often mentions that even the guys in the Amazon who are tribal cultures that have done this stuff for years, and he says his saying was he asked one of the elders about the mushroom and how people where he was, where Terrence is from, like they may use it willy-nilly sometimes, and sometimes they may take a lot. And when they take a lot, it's very difficult for them. And the guy's reply was, well, you think because we wear penis sheaths that this is any easier for us? It isn't. It isn't. It never gets any easier for us. It's as hard for us as it is for you. In another lecture, he mentions that his goal with doing more and more often is to be able to stand more of it. And I think there's something in that speaks to me about this. It's like, would it, and how would you go about trying to make it so that you are able to stand just a little bit more at a time in gradation? That may overcome the fear, that may overcome... I think it's a two-way street. I think the filter is a two-way thing. I don't think that's all us. The filter is there, yes, but can't you stop being, boogity, boogity, boogity? I mean, that can't all be us if it's on the onset. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how I see a filter. Perceiving it differently, perceiving it as something other than little guys and ships and all of that, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But, I mean, on some level, maybe we have gotten over some filters. I mean, you and I both have seen things lately that haven't been exactly alien, but have no doubt been somehow connected to the phenomena in a way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, with all of that hot air, my answer is I don't know. But I would think that it would know enough, or I would think that we would be able to. And there's got to be some kind of dialogue here that needs to, without sounding too much like Greer. There's got to be some kind of. I don't want a diplomacy course. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I do. I think that there's got to be a step taken. There's got to be you've got to enter into communion to actually get somewhere. And maybe Whitley had the right idea by swallowing the lump in his throat and putting on his best Sunday suit and going out and standing there and waiting. And maybe if you go out with that kind of open intention and honesty and shove fear to the rear and think of it as this is going to be a positive experience, maybe it would be. And maybe that would break the filter of fear and of maybe a lot of other things.
To be continued.
What do you think? You can't say to be continued. What do you think? Can filters be overcome or not?
Well, I don't know that I agree that that's all of what goes into a filter. I mean, I look at it also from the perspective of if we have, I don't remember what it is. What is it, 250 or 250,000? I don't know what it is. Points of information that come at us, and we recognize 5.
Right. Very small.
Yeah, so anything, again, that is transcendent of what we know is going to, or what we can perceive even, we're only going to see bits and pieces. And so when you see bits and pieces piercing through reality and the rest of it's invisible, well, it looks like maybe tentacle monster is coming at you, but that's just because you can't see the middle part. Where
Well, then you're talking about perceptual filters then. I mean...
Yeah. There's perceptual filters. I think there's cultural filters. I think there's...
I'm talking about more behavioral, filtering than anything else. I mean, that perceptual filters, I don't know how...
that they're saying boogity boogity boo first, and then you're reacting to it. And so why did they have to go boogity boogity boo first? And what I'm saying is...
Well, sure,
when I listen to your experiences of what happened to you first, I could see how it's not boogity boogity boo. I can see why it would look that way to you, obviously, as a little kid, and seeing this sheep being pulled over you, and then suddenly you're in another dimension, or something walking and clapping at you, and, Buddhist gong goes off somewhere. But that's... Again, there's a problem here, because my rational part wants to go, well, that could just be a misunderstanding. That could be you not knowing what the mechanics of this are, perception, blah, blah, blah. But then the other part that I know from experience is that there is an irrational fear component that goes with this that is just, out of your mind animalistic fear at the presence of this.
Yeah.
And is Whitley Strieber, Strieber getting a lot of airtime this week.
Yeah.
Is Strieber right about that too when he says it's an allergic reaction that we have to them, or like an allergic reaction? Well, if it is like an allergic reaction, maybe that only happens to some people, like allergies do.
Mm.
Maybe there are some people who can stomach it. I mean, supposedly transcendental Buddhists or meditators don't have a reflexive fear anymore. They've gotten rid of that. And James says that he has studied with the best of them. So is it possible that James has lost his reflexive fear?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
He's also had a near-death experience. I assume
Right.
the love and all of that outpouring of emotion that happens during that, and just the fact of it gets rid of a lot of fear, right?
Yeah.
If you stick with it, I've had my big I am experience, and I didn't stick with it. I said, I'm going to turn my back on this for a little while.
Yeah.
I'm going to be mortal again.
Well, I mean, has Whitley not said that? No doubt we've heard Whitley say this a million times, that these beings, whatever they represent, are immensely powerful, I think is the terminology that he uses. And I've always had the kind of the outlook on that portion of it that yeah, they are immensely powerful. Like that, yeah, I almost get the feeling at times like of being a grain of sand on the edge of a desk, and they could just as easily flick me off the edge of the desk and, as leave the room. I mean, it's that incidental. And so I think, I've talked about the fear of loss of control, because you really are, maybe for me and for a lot of other people, it's probably the thought and the fear of being at the mercy of something that you really don't understand. Because I think good or bad, however you want to perceive them, whether they're benevolent space brothers or evil alien doctors, either way you cut it, I think to know that they're vastly superior, obviously in some sort of spirituality sense. I don't know if technology falls into this or not. But, clearly they know something you don't, which automatically gives them the upper hand. And maybe part of that reactionary fear element is just the simple fact of that you're there in the presence of something that is immensely more powerful than you think you are. I'm not saying we're not. We could be, and we just don't know. I mean, to me, that seems to be the disconcerting point to me.
Well, if the twist that needs to happen is that you feel as if you're working with them.
Yeah.
Would you want to get to that point, or would you not trust it?
I don't know. I guess you'd have to. I guess you'd have to wonder if they're worthy of your trust or not. I don't know. I mean, what's the mantra? Never trust an alien. So I don't know. I mean, would I want to get to that point? I mean, if there's something to learn, sure. The question is, what is there to learn? What's going to be on the other side of that?
See, I don't think you learn. I think you change. I think the learning changes you, and that's the thing that is
that's
most fearful.
That's what's to be feared. Yes. The loss of what you know. Yeah,
and that's almost why I think a lot of these folks are in denial when you talk about an Orion Council and all that stuff. That's the positivist way of remaining yourself. It's I've got a handle on this. I've got answers. I'm working with this council that is that I can understand in just really basic terms.
Get my head around, yeah.
I mean, that doesn't ring true to me, and neither does the fear, even that I experience, ring true to me.
Right.
Because, as I've said a number of times, you look into the face of a being, and there's nothing there that's fearful. There's nothing there that's saying, I'm going to kill you. I want to...
No.
Yeah. So what is that fear? Why is there that fear? And are they blocking out that fear? Have they made peace with that fear? What is it that a Susan Kornacki and a James Gilliland have that I don't? And then what's the price? Is the price non-discernment? Can you have your cake and eat it too? And can you be discerning and
I don't know. I wouldn't say that the two are. I'd say that's a tenuous connection at best.
I mean, I think that all of this gets back to you got to know yourself before you ask what the other is, because if there is no self, if there truly is no self, and there's something waiting beyond that illusion, then we've got to get there. I mean, that's just it. Because if you're saying that your fear is, do they deserve your trust? Well, who the fuck are you?
Right.
If you don't exist. I mean, if truly you don't exist, that's nonsensical. And so maybe they're just calling out the nonsensical bullshit at every turn. And like, you can't get beyond that until you get beyond that, you know?
Yeah.
But I find it funny that this being comes in and takes away your fear, but still you're stubbornly refusing to play along. It's like, oh, great, you took my fear, wonderful. Bye. And these guys, they don't have fear, but they, I don't know. I don't know what they're embracing, you know?
Can I tell you what my head says?
Yes.
And I don't know if it's true or not, but it just sounds like coping mechanism to me to subscribe to, the Orion Council and the light and love and the dolphins and, all of that just seems like another way of approaching this that makes it less fearful and therefore more tolerable. The question is are you learning anything valuable by doing that? Or is it really just this phenomena, again, transforming into what's expected of it in a tailor-made individual way? This is why I say these broad sweeping categorizations of everyone's experiences aren't really that useful, because to me, this whole experience and anyone's interaction with it over the course of their life is all very personal and very subjective and very tailor-made to that person. I don't think you could find two people that have experienced it exactly the same way and have in turn conveyed it in exactly the same way. Because I think it ultimately it comes down to a completely personal experience, and therefore maybe someone like Susan meets someone like with James' outlook on it in a more open way, because they're both kind of into that thematic. And that's just kind of their way of coping with that. But at the same time, are they coping? It's not really coping if it's positive, right? There's nothing to cope with. See how that butts up against each other? It just like doesn't, the jigsaw puzzle doesn't fit there,
but
They're not coping. They are at peace with it. They are
right
in a state of awe with it, and there's nothing to cope with. This what do you mean cope? I'm not coping with anything, James would say. It's the way that they make it, and this is one thing that we've talked about on the show. The woo factor and all that, but there's woo, and then there's these types of things that don't fit that.
Even the dolphins. I mean, I'll say it again. You got a guy like James who goes and swims with dolphins, and he thinks he's communicating with them and having a grand old time, and wow, what an amazing experience. Yeah. I've been to swim with the very same pack of dolphins, probably. I'm sure Michael Sala brought him out. I'm sure of this. He said he was in Hawaii, right?
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure I went out to the same pack of spinner dolphins with Ted Rowe. And my experience is, please don't butt me in the ribs and eat me. That was my... When I'm being circled by things that look like sharks, that's usually what I'm thinking.
Right.
It indeed was. And then it became not a magical experience, but, like my fear went down and I could sort of enjoy the presence of these dolphins and be in awe of nature and all of that. But it certainly wasn't like, I'm not psychically communicating with them. I'm not having this epiphany or anything like that. Now, what's the truth of the situation? The truth of the situation is we both swam with dolphins. It was as you wish.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure with James, they probably said, come, James, swim with us. And with you, they probably said, Jeremy, get with the fucking pod. I mean...
With me, they were like, aren't you too fat to be out here? Aren't you going to get a cramp? But, so...
I bet he tastes good.
But here's the thing. So from the dolphin thing, now the truth of it is that we both swam with dolphins.
Hmm?
The subjectivity of it is the as you wish part. Now, the subjectivity part isn't going to go away so long as the self exists, because that's what subjectivity is. So as long as I'm living in this world of self, why would I not want to be the guy who's loving it out there and not afraid of dying? Why wouldn't I want to be that guy?
Because you're afraid of losing what you know.
Well, and maybe the answer is...
You're comfortable where you are.
But what's he afraid of? Because clearly he's not... I'm saying clearly, and I'll throw it out there. Clearly, he's not psychically communicating with dolphins, and he's not... he's just out there with dolphins. That's the truth of the matter. We're both just out there with dolphins. So what is it about me that doesn't want to be happy with that? And what is it about him that needs to be ultra happy and, add on to it, like outlandishly, like I'm communicating and I saw an orb. I mean, this was something, this 2008 thing. I saw an orb that was dolphin shaped, and that was related to the fact that I was going to go out there and swim with the dolphins, and it was communication and all that. I mean, what is it about somebody that needs to go those extra steps to be happy? And what is it about me that doesn't even approach happiness? I mean, are we both suffering flip ends of the same sort of depression coin or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
Called the self.
Yeah, could well be. I don't know. I'm a little out of touch with the whole self and enlightenment thing, but
no, you're not. Shut up.
I am. But bullshit. I will say,
bullshit. You always understand exactly what I'm saying, and then you say it better like a week later.
I do understand what you're saying. I just it doesn't. I mean, for me, I can't make sense of it. For me, for you, it's perfect. What I can say is that the book that you gave me, the Krishnamurti book, I've read it 10 times. This chapter on fear, and it. I mean, he really just is brilliant. And the one thing that I always think about is, you don't fear the unknown because you don't know, you don't have anything to compare it to. How can you fear the unknown? You don't fear the unknown. What you fear is the loss of yourself. You fear the loss of what you know in your comfortable lifestyle and the way you sit with yourself. That's what you fear losing. And so, with you with the dolphins, what would that mean if you went out there and loved it? What would that mean for you? I don't necessarily know what that would mean for you. That's for you to say. But if you went out there and had some magical experience, is the fear of it that, oh my God, I'm going to go out here and have a magical experience with fish, mammals, whatever. And you're going to be, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to wear, I want to wear a short gold chain.
I totally wanted to be that guy. There's one reason and one reason only to swim with dolphins, and that's to have the magical experience. But you were afraid of... But I was like, oh, wait, no. I mean, it's like the rawness of oh, no, I'm actually out in the depths of the ocean with things that I cannot see and things that I can, and I'm now being circled by a pod of dolphins. This is nature. This ain't no show on nature where, Flipper ain't gonna rear his head and chirp at me,
Right.
And then to see babies, there was baby there, at least one. And then I get the thing of, what are mothers with their babies? Are they protective? Is that going to happen? Am I invading their territory? All of that stuff. It becomes real because you're out there in it.
So ultimately you were worried about physical pain.
Yes, I was worried about, being bucked, essentially. But, it's like anything else. It's like you let a dog sniff you and then you pet it. If I'm James, I pick the dog up and I twirl it around and I go, wee! And if the dog never bites me, then why not? Why shouldn't I do that? Me and the dog will both love it.
Right, yeah, you both love it. Right, exactly. This is insane. I don't know. What do you... thanks for that mental picture, I gotta say. You and a dog, throwing each other around and loving it. Well, if you wanted to be that guy, I think you should have been that guy. I don't see if you wanted to be that guy why you would go out there and be afraid.
Because
you know
you
what I
can't
mean?
help it. Because it's like just an instinctive. It's not like I thought about it.
Right.
It was just like
So there's your answer. It's instinctive.
right.
That speaks more to your brain than, like, oh shit, I'm out here, out of my element, in the water, relatively helpless, and now there are things in here that live here. And we're right back to the thing of, I am around, in this environment, immensely more powerful beings. Correct?
Yeah, it's exactly
And there's
that.
your fear.
It's
And
that
there's
it's
your
the
fear.
realization that you're in a larger environment that you're not in control of, right? That's what
That's
that is.
exactly it. And that's exactly how it feels to me with, an alien, or whatever we want to call them, being, is that I'm in an element now that is not normal, is not my comfortable environment, and I'm surrounded by something vastly more powerful than me. And so the question bears in mind, just as you said with the dolphins, what are they going to do to me? My answer is, what are you going to do to me? That's really it. And that is the brain saying, I'm out of my element, So I brought that joke right back to a Seinfeld conclusion. How'd you like that?
Wow. Great.
Yeah. Thanks. Ding, 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 ding. So, that's really it. How do you overcome that? I don't know. I guess if you went out there again, you certainly wouldn't feel that way, would you?
No, I would feel more at home.
You feel more at home. So, yeah, see, it's a gradual evolution of your own.
But I'm still afraid of sharks.
Well, sure, but a dolphin, their natural enemy is a shark. They'll butt the crap out of a shark.
Right.
So likely they would be the ones going after him, not him after you. Or he wouldn't even approach. That really is it for me. It's the loss of what I know. And I think from the time I was, 22, 23, I did lose a lot of what I thought I knew. Like when I got up in the morning, I thought I knew that, some weird shit had happened, but whatever.
So maybe
and then that night with my wife, it became, oh no, there's something much bigger here. And now you're see it.
So James's experiences as a kid was of being really sick and then having these sort of, religious experiences.
Right.
So he goes from pain, deathly ill into an ecstatic experience, Marian visions and all this.
Right.
He drowns. He goes into a near-death experience. So, in a way, and he said, right, he was raised to sort of be open to this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe he is the perfect storm of somebody to be brought into feeling okay with this, He's, in a way, conquered death, conquered pain and illness in his head, It's like pain and illness are immediately associated with this other stuff. Pain and illness don't register anymore. That's all the illusion. The real thing is what's beyond the veil. And what's beyond the veil is this ecstatic, blissful oneness thing.
Well, this is a topic we're gonna be tackling soon, is the near death experience stuff. I want to do more than a few shows on that, because I think there's something to be learned from some of those people, because you could say that, or you could surmise that James having that experience, a lot of those people come back from that whole episode with no fear of dying whatsoever, and no fear of what comes next. And I bet that's really liberating. I bet that's really, because when you go to swim with dolphins at that point, you could give a fuck if a shark came up and swallowed you whole, because that this is not. Yeah, like you just said, this is all illusionary, and what's real is what comes after this. For the rest of us chickens back here, that's something to be feared, because we haven't had our own personal, subjective, tailor-made experience of that. So James may have lost his fear of a lot of things very early on going through that. That's probably one big part of it. But am I right in saying that he had odd experiences before all of that happened, or did they start at the near-death experience that he had?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. When he was a kid, he had sicknesses that ended up in, I almost said hallucinatory, because that's what a doctor would say.
Okay.
Marian visions, I think Mary from As we all know from the Bible.
Right.
Came to him and whatever, held him, I don't know what, patted him on the head, not sure quite what. But, you know, that whole thing, the whole Catholic trip.
Sure. Maybe that's, that could be a big part of it is having experiences like that early on that were all very positive, and then the near death thing, coming away from that, you've got to be. I just watched a program the other night again, and I've recorded it this time, called the Day I Died, and all of these people ultra transformed by the near death experience into a completely different, not only personality trait, but also their life paths, their outlook on death, their outlook on life, and I'll bet you that's got a lot to do with why James is who he is and how he relates to this. So, but again, James, thank you very much for coming on, and I really enjoyed it. I really did.
Yes, James, thank you very much. Jody Heckman, thank you very much.
Yes,
for
thank you, Jody.
Contact. Jeff Ritzman, thank you very much.
Jeremy Vaeni, thank you very much.
Thank you again for thanking me. In our last second here, should we tell the listeners about all the changes that are coming up on Paratopia?
Sure, go for it.
Good night, everybody.
Brilliant. That's good radio.